Yes.
All right, the same guy. I mean, he's a real disinformation, in my estimation. He obviously has to be the disinformation specialist. He had people terrified about the danger of the avian flu here about 3 years ago.
Well, he sells the flu.
All right. And
he makes I don't know what he does, but anyway, he's making money off of it.
Well, certainly, after reading his material and listening,
it'll be in the next issue.
All right, fine.
They're just government scumbags.
Well, because they have
I mean, these women wouldn't say that, unless it happened.
All right.
I mean, they're not nutcases. They're both married to offices. I mean, they got college educations. They're not dingbats.
All right, fine. Well, I'm sure that they're tracking your emails as well. They're tracking
they track. Who cares?
I know. Well, anyway, I think it's important that people understand this whole swine flu scenario is as phony as a $3 bill. Number one, why before they have this vaccine for distribution, the epidemic's going to be over. It's peaking out right now. There are 23, 24 states where this is widespread. That is the highest level. Anybody can want to check it, can go up on the internet and get the color-coded pictures from the CDC. Simply put in CDC H1N1 surveillance. CDC H1N1 surveillance. It'll take you right to the CDC page, and you can see the epidemic is exploding, and the epidemic's going to be just about over before the vaccine's available. And they want to give it anyway because they know it'll do a lot of damage. Well, you don't want to give a vaccine to somebody who has lifelong immunity to a disease. Why would you want to do that unless you wanted to damage them?
They want to kill them.
Well, I think they're going
euthanasia is what it's called. And they also want to control the people. And probably 40% of them are going to take the shots and pay the price because they're too dumb to know otherwise. They don't look outside the box. They don't read my publication. They don't do anything on the Internet. They believe the lies that are on major media. And it's too bad. But, we can't save everybody.
But I think the encouraging part of this, is that over 50% of the people have not fallen for the propaganda program that is night after night after night after night after night on television, and over 50% of the people are not going along with the program. So you think you're absolutely right, Bob. I think it's exciting that people are beginning to wake up, and I feel so terribly sorry for the children whose parents are so stupid they're going to let them take an unnecessary vaccine, because most of the people who've had this disease don't even know they've had it. It's so mild. And certainly we know that from the Australian study that was used, of course, to say the vaccine works. It was totally fraudulent. They tested one vaccine in Australia, and they used that as a test and paper to justify, releasing a different vaccine in the United States. How can you test one vaccine and then, so that you can release a different vaccine? That doesn't make any sense. But then so much what's going on doesn't make any sense. Right.
The foundations and Rockefeller and Rothschild are the biggest shareholders in the drug companies. Their profit margins are 18% a year, every year, and it's just disgusting what they've done to the public.
Well, they've done immeasurable harm to our children, and this is why we have so much autoimmune disease and autism and allergy and asthma in our children. This is why we have so many SID deaths, sudden infant deaths, and then why we have the shaken baby syndrome. This is why we have an epidemic of autism and ADD and HDHD. This is why so many children have chronic diarrhea. This is why we have so many deaths. And the average individuals cannot believe that anybody would do this intentionally. And you can only understand that we're dealing with organized evil. Well, our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. The board is beginning to light up. People want to talk to Bob Chapman. And if you're out there, give us a call. 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 464-8295. And you've got to help us get the truth out, and we need to get it out. We need to get it out now. We'll be back in just a moment here with a special guest, right here at Radio Liberty. And this is Dr. Stan. Our guest, of course, is Bob Chapman. We've got George calling from Toronto. George, you have one more question before we let you go.
Yes, sir. Bob, do you remember that story about the madam from, I think it's Washington, D.C., who had a list of names of all the perverts that her prostitutes were servicing and that? Whatever came of that? I know she was done in.
She had just committed suicide after she said, I would never commit suicide, but I've got a list of all these politicians, and the next thing she knew, she had committed suicide.
That's right, Dr. Stan. And
the names disappeared.
She had given the names of those people to, I think, her lawyer, and different copies were circulating around, but nothing ever seemed to come of it.
Everybody's afraid they'll kill them.
And they really do, you know. Jim Keith, Sydney, a fellow we'd interviewed a number of times, went in the background of Timothy McVeigh, who was actually working for a special forces unit. He told this to Terry Nichols. He told this to one of his cellmates who wrote a book called A Secret Worth Dying For. I mean, Timothy McVeigh was working for the government black operations. That's why they blew up the Murrah building. And, of course, Jim Keith wrote about this, and you never guess what happened. Died under very mysterious circumstances shortly before his publisher died, shortly before his ex-wife died. What a coincidence. Hey, we got to let you go. George, thanks very much. Oh, do you have one more question?
Oh, that's all. Thanks a lot,
God bless. And let's go to Robert, who's calling from Gilroy. Robert, do you have a question for our guest?
Dr. Stan, yes, I do, for Mrs. Chapman. It's been several weeks now since Barrick got rid of its hedging and its gold, and I was wondering, it being the biggest gold producer, I was just wondering if Mr. Chapman had any afterthoughts on this move.
Which company is that?
Barrick had stopped hedging.
Okay, Barrick, very easy. Barrick was created as Barrick Oil Company in the 1970s. It became Barrick Gold in the early 1980s, and it is actually an appendage of the U.S. government. It's an intelligence operation. And what they did was two things. They laundered the part of the Golden Lily gold that the CIA split with the Japanese after the war. And they were digging it up during the 1980s, and Barrick was saying, well, we mine this stuff, so we're selling it. And nobody thought anything of it. Peter Monk is a criminal. He's very close to the royal family in England, and he's been a criminal for many years. He was wanted for fraud and stock manipulation, and he left the country of Canada and stayed in American Samoa for 7 years. And the statute of limitations on the charges ran out. And then he went, while he was there, he was working for an Anglo-American company that had been funded by the royal family. He came back, he did the Barrick thing, and they started shorting gold in 1988 by hedging gold forward in the market in order to keep it from going up in price.
Yes,
they got involved in real estate. It was a disaster. They just claimed $5.6 billion in losses from their hedge positions, and the real figure is another $2 billion. They've lied about everything. They admitted in court in testimony prior to the case being dropped because Blanchard Gold, which brought the lawsuit, got paid off to shut their mouths. And so we don't know exactly what happened, but we do know in the interrogatories that Barrick said they were working for the United States government. So basically, Peter Monk is a criminal, and I have never bought his stock. I never will. And I tried to get shareholders to bring a lawsuit against him in 1992, and they wouldn't do it. And so there's much better companies out there. To me, the top 4 companies are Agnico Eagle, Gold Corp, Silver Standard, and Mine Finders.
All right.
Barrick should not be purchased. It should be sold.
All right, fine. And Chris, the other thing is, will gold go up now that they're not hedging to drive the price down?
Absolutely. I mean, if you take inflation since 1980, you're looking at $2,370 an ounce, And those are official government figures. If you use real figures, it's something like $6,500 an ounce. And that's where it's going to go.
Okay.
We may even have a blow-off on it and have it go much higher.
Robert,
this is a tiger by the tail.
Robert, does that answer your question?
It sure does, and thank you very much, Mr. Chapman.
God bless. Thanks very much.
welcome.
Let's go to Russell, who's calling from Wisconsin. And again, our telephone number, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 464-8295. Hi, Russell. How are you doing?